know what's funny? This journey started one Sunday in 1992. I get a call. I'm working at the post office, and a man by the name of Andy says, "Your father died." And my question was, how do you know my father, right? This was the Sunday before they announced a verdict in the Rodney King trial.
Oh, wow.
So I was on my way to West Boulevard, Flores, to buy flowers for the funeral. But on that Sunday, I found out I had a brother and a sister that I didn't even know about.
That's
right?
crazy.
You know? And then when I see them, I was like, they are related to me because you see it.
Yeah, you see it.
You know? And so flash forward to 2020, the year of COVID. I'm at UCLA doing the State of Black California Forum. And I see your daughter. And she's like trying to own my camera because she's just like active and stuff. And I marvel at the fact that a black woman had the audacity to bring her daughter to an event like this. And then I find out your handle is Charity for President. And I'm like, Mama got audacity too, right? I still don't make any connection between 1992 and 2020 until 2 weeks ago when you hit me with a text and say, hey, you know my papa. Tell the story.
Okay, so I'm on Facebook and I noticed that, you know, I follow you, you're like in my political circle, as I would call it. And I noticed one of my cousins, Marissa, liked your post. And that was odd for me because my family is never connected to the friends I have in the political space. So when I clicked on your name, I noticed that you were friends with more of my family members, my cousin Erica, my auntie Denise Hamilton. And your name was Leroy Hamilton, which I'm like, okay, that's my grandfather's name, but there's other Leroy Hamiltons. That's probably a common name, but I text my auntie Nisi and my auntie Ree at the same time with your photo saying, hey, do you know this guy? Are y'all related? And they both came back, my auntie Nisi came back saying, yes, that's my brother. That's Richard and my brother. I was like, shut up. I know this guy. I see him all the time. You know, we know each other, and had no idea that I was related to him. And it was, I immediately messaged you saying, hey, your father is my pawpaw. And here we are.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So, you know what? We've dealt with COVID since that meeting.
Right.
We've dealt with Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Rashard Brooks, a whole bunch of attacks on black bodies. And we're like 33 days away from election 2020. Yep. And the thing that stood about you was the fact that you were so politically engaged.
Yes.
And I consider you a millennial.
I am a millennial.
Okay.
Yes.
So I needed people in the millennial space to talk about why this election is important, why this moment is important. How do we seize this moment and make it our moment? Because I've taken pictures here with the American flag as a backdrop, and a lot of young folks are like, I don't want to be in front of that.
Yeah.
But if we want America to be better, we got to own that flag and say that flag has to treat us better, right?
Absolutely.
So, introduce us first of all to who you are, your role in politics, your life as a mother, how you got to this point.
Yes, so I'm Charity Chandler-Cole. I have a lot of different roles right now. I'm president of the Black Los Angeles Young Democrats. I am the chairwoman of the board of a phenomenal criminal justice reform organization called the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, ARC. I'm an LA County Commissioner for Children and Families and also the co-chair of our new Racial Justice Committee, my 9 to 5. I'm the National Director of Contracts Administration for the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and CEO of my own firm called Transformative Management Solutions. I say all that because it relates to and kind of goes into my story of how I got here I am today, born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I'm someone that has been oppressed in every single way by the systemic and institutional racism that runs rampant within our country. I've experienced the foster care system here in the 2nd Supervisorial District, the juvenile justice system, the criminal justice system. And, you know, for me, you know, growing up in LA, it was completely normal to be poor. It was completely normal to be impoverished. And so when I got caught up in the system and was just told time and time again that I would never amount to anything and be nothing. And when I, you know, became an adult and wanted to be something and realized that the world did not want me to become anything, and that statistically I shouldn't have graduated from high school, let alone go to college and graduate in the top of my class from undergrad and graduate school, you know, I was really annoyed and upset at that fact. And so I started to really fight and advocate for a lot of the things I was personally impacted by at a very grassroots level. And as I realized, you know, my fight for criminal justice reform, for foster children, for child sex trafficking, and more, I realized that a lot of the power to change the dynamics of the things I cared about and wanted to fight for really lied in politics. And I hated politics, knew nothing about it, in no way or fashion wanted to get involved. But I realized that I had, you know, a voice in this space that you don't often hear from. Oftentimes people that are impacted by a lot of the things we fight for are muted or silenced, or we're told we're not good enough to tell our stories, or if we do, we have to use a certain narrative that they want us to use. And so I really just wanted to use my narrative to tell the real story of how a young black girl, how young black girls in Los Angeles, in South Central, in Compton, Inglewood, you know, all of my stopping grounds, what we really have to go through and how important it is to fight for the things we want to fight for and care about. Now I'm a mother. I have 5 children, 5 beautiful children. I'm married to an amazing, phenomenal black guy, black attorney who I'm very proud of. And, you know, together we're trying to, you know, raise our children to believe that they can do anything they want to do. They can be anything they want to be. They can defy the odds, and voting and being a part of our democratic process is such an important part of that. My children probably know more about politics and voting than the average adult, because it's important that they understand, you know, their history, where we come from, and how people fought and died and sacrificed for the right to vote, and how important that is. So here I am today to really kind of tell that story, give out that narrative, and help millennials understand why it's important to exercise the power we have that we don't quite know we have yet.
So as the leader of GLAAD, you've endorsed some people.
We have.
You've endorsed some propositions, some measures. Speak to those endorsements.
Yes, so the Black Los Angeles Young Democrats, we are very intentional with the candidates and the propositions, initiatives that we endorse. We are not here to just endorse any person that's black running for office. We are looking for folks that are transformational, folks that are going to lead and pave the way for black people specifically to run for office and to be those change agents and leaders within our community. So we have proudly endorsed, you know, Holly Mitchell for LA County Supervisor for the 2nd Supervisorial District. She is someone who, and I want to spend 20 seconds on her, because she is someone who, you know, fought for our dignity, for our rights, you know, for criminal justice reform, for racial justice before it became a hashtag, before it was something that folks wanted to take up and endorse and support, because it wasn't sexy back then. So I applaud her in her efforts to run for LA County Supervisor, to continue the good work she's been doing. In that seat, she'll be replacing Mark Riley Thomas, someone who we've also endorsed, who's now running for City Council for the 10th District. He's unfortunately turning out to be a Board of Supervisor. However, he can continue that great work as a City Council member in the 10th District. He's done phenomenal work around housing, around helping to develop and nurture our next generation of black leaders and address a lot of the oppression and systemic racism that impacts the black community today. We've endorsed Assemblywoman for re-election, Sidney Kamlager. We endorsed George Gascon for LA County District Attorney, Jawan Hilton for Carson City Council. We've in 3 more new up-and-coming folks that are getting involved in politics, but are very passionate and unapologetic and amazing in their fight and quest for justice, which would be Nichelle Hunter, who's running for the LA County Community College Board of Trustees. We have Yasmin McCorn, who's running for Culver City City Council, and we have Miranda Sheffield, who's running for Pomona City Council. So we're very happy to endorse those candidates specifically. There are a lot of initiatives on the ballot. Do you want me to just call them out or kind of give? There
are some that they're tricky because they put blackface in the commercials to give the impression that it's for us.
Yes.
So if you look at Prop 15, they're going to put blackface on it and say, they showed the black small business owner putting the clothes sign up, right? to give the impression that black folks who are just getting their business going, they're not going to be able to deal with the higher, I guess, the higher property tax that comes with Proposition 15.
Right.
But if you look at a lot of those campaigns, if you look at who's supporting it, it's the Howard Jarvis Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Howard Jarvis was the author of Prop 13, which created this mess.
Right.
So speak to a few of the propositions that are at the top of your list that if you don't check nothing else, you got to check.
Right. So there are a handful of propositions we definitely want to focus on. I'll touch on Prop 15 briefly because you did bring it up. We are supporting Prop 15. It's a tax proposition that basically creates higher taxes for commercial property that's over about $3 million, I want to say, in worth. So it doesn't really impact your small businesses necessarily, but it allows the government to tax a lot of the commercial properties that, because of Prop 13, weren't able to pay as much or didn't have to pay as much out of pocket for taxes because of Prop 13. And what this does is it puts money back into our communities and into our schools. You know, if you look at, Los Angeles or South Central, for example, if we have these big, big box businesses, or a lot of the businesses that took advantage of Prop 13 back in the day, they're paying very low taxes as opposed to what they should be paying at market value. And when they pay higher taxes, those taxes then go into helping to increase our educational system. Something else we've endorsed Prop 16, which is affirmative action. Prop 209 repealed affirmative action, and a lot of folks didn't know this not too long ago. And because of that, Black people, brown people, indigenous people, we haven't had equal access to jobs, to employment, to education. And so we're asking, because of racism is so real, we're asking for affirmative action to be something that's considered again in California, because we need opportunity. And it's not just about equality, it's about equity. And we have not been giving an equitable chance to fight in this society. We're also, and what's huge right now, Prop 17. Prop 17 is going to give those that have been formerly incarcerated the opportunity to vote. When we look at a lot of, what folks are fighting for, criminal justice reform, how are we going to fight for criminal justice reform if the people that have been impacted by our criminal injustice system are not allowed to vote? So voting yes for Prop 17 is critical, because our brothers, our sisters, our fathers, people that we know and love that have been unjustly, in most cases, impacted by the criminal justice system are not allowed to vote. So we want to restore the vote for those that are currently on parole. Also, Prop 18 allows young adults, millennials who are 17 years old, to vote if they turn 18 during a general election. It's extremely important because a lot of these young people's voices are not heard in the general election. So we want to make sure that we include our young leaders, to be a part of our vote. We also have Prop 20, and I want to vote no on Prop 20. I urge everyone to vote no on Prop 20. Our, grassroots level folks, our elected leaders, we have done so much work to get Prop 47 and Prop 57 passed. Prop 47 allowed a lot of felony charges, such as having marijuana in your possession, smoking marijuana. A lot of the unjust and disproportionate effects and intentional racist, laws that existed during the war on drugs, which criminalized and put a lot of our Black and brown sisters and brothers in jail over having marijuana, and then gave them felony charges. So they spent decades upon decades in jail. And when they came out, because of their felony charges, were unable to have access to housing, employment, and some of our social services benefits. So Prop 47 rolled all that back, made the felony charges misdemeanors, and gave opportunities to a lot of our brothers and sisters. And Prop 57 allowed them to now be released back into society as successful agents of society to, be reunited and be restored in our communities. Prop 20 wants to undo all of that. So we urge everyone to vote no on Prop 20 and then yes on Prop 21, which gives renters protections. It puts new laws in place for rent protection within the state of California. Homelessness is real. Not housing insecurity is real. So Prop 21 seeks to, help a lot of the folks that, have rent insecurity, have housing insecurity. And there's also protections in there for landlords who don't own a lot of properties, like folks here in Leimert Park that may own one building or two buildings. There's protections in them there for them as well. So those are some of the few we're really, oh, and then Measure J, oh my gosh, I have to mention Measure J, which is Reimagine LA, which is to, take some of the funding away from our police budgets, from our law enforcement budgets, and say, hey, we understand that there's a need for folks that have mental health issues, substance abuse issues, folks that have been oppressed in our communities and don't have access to the resources and services they need to be thriving, successful agents of society. We're saying that there's not a need for law enforcement in every aspect of our daily lives. So let's take some of that money away and reinvest it back into our community. So if nothing else, please vote yes on Measure J.
Damn. You know your stuff.
I try. It's important we do our research.
The question I have is, when are you running for office?
I have no intentions of running for office anytime soon. I ran for city council in the city of Gardena a few years back, and right now I'm just in a place where I want to help develop the next generation of leaders. It doesn't have to be me. As long as it's someone out there willing to fight for what's right and what's needed and necessary in our communities, it doesn't have to be me. But if I do ever have to run for office again, I definitely would love to run for Congress or to run at a assembly level or Senate level, because I just really love policy. I want to change policy. And if we're going to really change racism in our country, it starts at the legislative level. I have no idea when that time would be. It may be never. I'm hoping I never have to run for office. But if that call ever comes, if it's God's will, I'll take up the baton and take my marching orders.
Now, these flies are unrelenting.
It's okay.
But you were just swatting flies, answering questions, just handling business. Mm-hmm. Finally, if you could speak directly to that millennial or just that black person who's on the fence, who's like, I'm not voting because this ain't my country.
Right. I would say millennials, young people, older people. I cannot say this enough. We have a social responsibility to vote. When I voted for the first time in 2004, it was when Bush was running against, I believe, John Kerry. And I voted not because I knew anything about politics. I actually knew nothing. But I voted because I was told that I would never be anything, that people like me don't vote, my voice will never be counted. And I'm pretty rebellious. So I voted just to be rebellious and to prove people wrong and to vote. Had I known in that moment what my ancestors went through to fight for my right to vote, just in the 1960s alone, how during the civil rights movement, our vote was so suppressed that people fought, people died, people sacrificed for us to have the right to vote today. That part of our history isn't taught in class. It's not a part of our curriculum. But had I known that our votes mattered so much that people went to great lengths to suppress our vote, I would have more boldly and confidently walked into the voting booth to cast my vote. When I see now, today, that people refuse to vote, especially millennials, it's simply to me because they don't understand their history and how important it is for our voices to be heard. And I apologize on behalf of the nation and society that you've been denied the right to your history, that you've been denied the understanding to know how phenomenal the people that came before us are and how they laid the foundation and groundwork for us to vote today. We need to vote because our voice is our power. Win or lose, when we vote, we are telling our elected officials that this is what we want and this is how we want it. And we're sending a very clear message that we're listening, we're engaged, we're active participants in our democracy. But when we don't vote, our voices are muted. Whether we win or lose, the people that show up and vote, there's data that tells elected officials how to tweak their agenda, what initiatives to fight for based on the people that are involved. And if our voices aren't heard, if we're not a part of that data, if we're not a part of the decision making, they're not going to introduce policies and move forward policies that advance our communities. So whether we lose or not, as long as we show up, as long as we're woke and we're present and we show them that we actually care, we actually have, things we want to fight for, they're going to be forced to respond to the will and the needs of the community. But that's not going to happen if we don't vote, if we don't understand our power. You have an obligation to be your ancestors' wildest dreams. We have it so much easier than they had it. We think it's hard now, but we have no idea what our ancestors went through during slavery, during Jim Crow, even during the civil rights movement. We have leverage to really fight for the things we need, that our communities need to survive. We have access to different types of technology and innovation that we can use to really advance our movement. So We owe it to them to get up and vote and not be complacent. Do your research. And if you're not sure about some of the initiatives or candidates, reach out to someone that you know is involved and learn. We have an obligation to do so.
Oh, bad mofo. You didn't use one profane word.
It was very hard.
And I know you saw last night's debate.
I did. Oh my gosh.
And
oh my gosh.
it was, if you saw last night's debate and you're not motivated by just that alone, then I can't say nothing to you.
Nothing. Nothing.
Because that's as much evidence as you need to know that if white supremacy is already unchecked, imagine the next 4 years of this crazy 45.
Yeah. Yeah. Last night was, I don't want to say unreal because we know 45 is a hot mess, but if nothing else, if folks didn't get anything else out of the first presidential debate last night, it's that our president is a racist. He is an unapologetic racist, and the fact that he couldn't condemn white supremacy is very clear. Don't be surprised. You cannot condemn something you are a part of. He is a white supremacist, and he is a racist. And if you didn't know it then, if you didn't believe it then, you have to believe it now. He is unapologetic in his efforts to destroy and divide our nation and our country. And it sickens me, and it worries me, and it's scary because it's not just my generation. I have children who will also have children. And if we do not lay the foundation for them right now to restore our country and to bring it to a place where our children can thrive, it's going to get really scary. There's a lot of folks out there who are, arming themselves ready, for a civil war if need be, to put us back, make America great. Is for who? It definitely wasn't for us. It wasn't for black people. It wasn't for brown people. It wasn't for indigenous people. It was for people that profited off of our oppression. We cannot allow that to happen. And there's no such thing as being an undecided voter. You either know or you don't know. You either will or you won't. Undecided means that you know which side you're on, but you don't want the rest of the world to know. So you're going to keep it a secret. So it's important that you decide today, which side of the fence are you on? We can no longer straddle the fence. Our lives are at stake. Our lives are literally on the ballot this year. Our right to access and equality is literally on the ballot this year. Opportunities for our sisters and brothers to be engaged in the democratic process post-incarceration is on the ballot this year. Restoring and healing our communities is on the ballot this year. And we have to take initiative, and we have to have a position, and we have to stand for something.